Hello from my home to yours. Welcome to EMS at Sea Level. I'm joined today by Vidar Olsen from Confidee. Thanks so much for joining me. Exciting stuff. We've been watching you in stealth mode or in your secret mode, and hearing that something's coming. You finally launched this this project earlier this week. So start by telling us what you're doing, and maybe give us a bit of an insight into your own personal background as well.
Of course, we have done a lot of preparation to do this launch. We wanted to be a little bit off the grid because we have had a lot of things to do, especially building up a completely new IT system, which has taken, of course, a lot of time. And it's not like it's going to be finalized already now. Is something that is continuously going to be developed as some of the key points we are trying to sell, which is of course compliance, which is our main focus.
Okay, and what's your background, Vidar? Where do you come from prior to this project?
Prior, I have about 35 years experience in electronics. I've been with PCBA for 10 years and then 25 years with PCB. My previous position was Chief Procurement Officer at my previous employer. I have education in electronics and in economics. So that's about it. So I've been
where you come
stuck
from.
in this business for a lot of years. It's hard to come out again.
Yeah, I think once you get into the printed circuit board and the EMS industry, it's hard to get out. I started my career as a printed circuit board designer many years ago back in Cambridge. So it's an industry that I've watched for a few decades. Why do you think there is a need for a company that focuses specifically on compliance? Is it something you feel has been overlooked in the supply chain, or something that perhaps the supply chain doesn't take proper care of?
Yeah, I think it's actually a combination of both. I think it's about it's a lot about knowledge. I think that's actually the main reason why we see that there was a niche for us in the market. It was both knowledge about compliance in overall. I think that's one thing, and the other thing is actually that how the different companies are flowing down the requirements and how they actually ensure that that's flowing down, and that you can actually trust that people do what they're saying. I think that's the key points that we see that is a challenge in the market, obviously, and it still is. And I don't think that we will come with a solution for everybody, but I think that by following some of the values that we are using, which is transparency, I think that we will prove what we are saying, and I think that's one of the key points that we are focusing at the moment.
Yeah. So if I'm a purchaser of printed circuit boards, be that a EMS company or an OEM buying them directly, where do I engage with Confidee, and how does that relationship work?
Normally we have, of course, we are doing a lot of advice in terms of technical skills and so on in the company as well. But I think if we are talking about the compliance point of view, I think that we will support the customer in actually help them to understand the requirements, and to also to help them to flow down their requirements. I think that's one of the things that we especially, maybe it's a little bit harsh to say, but I think that the challenge we see in the market is actually that the flow down from the top is actually the main challenge. And to make that happen, you need to have trust in the supply chain, which is a key point for us. So by supporting people in the supply chain, I think that will be a benefit for the whole flow.
For the whole team, yeah. So when I look at the supply chain, are your customers are predominantly going to be the people that are purchasing the printed circuit boards, and your work starts in terms of how they provide data, how they provide the compliance and data requirements to their supply chain, so it flows in the direction to the manufacturer and then all the way back up. Is that
correct?
Yeah.
That's partly correct, but I think that we will. Our main focus is actually to start with the product owners, they who actually develop the products. Of course now, and of course our company is a contributor to extend that supply chain, because there's a lot of people in between, from the product owner to the raw material supplier. But I think that by trying to be as transparent partner in between, we will try to close those gaps. So we are making sure that everything is flowing down from the top and down to the manufacturers. I think that's where we're trying to contribute the most at the moment.
Yeah, and you're looking at the whole ecosystem, so that brings in laminate suppliers as well as PCB fabricators and everybody that's upstream from that.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
and I think we have seen that, and we are still talking about compliance, and it's not. Of course, a lot of people are talking about compliance with regards to defense, but I think that the world around us now shows that there's a lot more than just defense business. There's a lot of challenges in other kind of industries like energy and water supply and healthcare. So we see that the protection of the data and make sure that you are follow regulations is very, very important.
Yeah, I think it's hugely valuable. And when I look at, we've just put together our 2023 trend pieces for the coming year, and a lot of people are talking about changes in the supply chain and this move towards almost a zero trust supply chain that has data that's being validated at every different point. And we're also in a world where supply chains are changing. People are looking at perhaps shorter supply chains. People are looking at, particularly with printed circuit boards, maybe reshoring some of that capacity to places like the US and Central Europe. So I think there are some changes there. So there's a clear need to have a solid flow of data. Is kind of one of the fundamentals of what you're doing, the digital transformation of those processes? Is it all about the data flow as much as process?
Yeah, it is actually how to secure that the data flows correctly and is in a secure way, of course, and also to have traceability and also to have transparency of who has access to the data at any given time. And I think that's one of the requirements which are very often flow down from the defense in the US, which are the more stringent requirements. But we see that this is also a requirement from the larger OEMs. They want to make sure that their data are protected, because they don't want to see products being copied or to fall into bad hands. I think you mentioned then one word, which is trust, which is of course one of the words that we are using as well. Confidee means actually to whom you trust. And I think to reach full transparency in the supply chain, you need a lot of trust, right? People wants to work with people, and being personal makes people trust each other. And I think that's the main focus that we're building on now, that we have a lot of clients who wants to work with us because they trust our experience. And I think that's a good start for us.
Yeah, and that trust must come a lot from the team that you put together. And you've put, you're not just one or two people. You're a reasonably sized team already, and that's a team that has got a pedigree in the printed circuit board industry. That must have been important in terms of creating the startup.
Of course, and I think I'm quite humbled to say that it's not only me that have put together this team. We have been a lot of people joining forces together to make this team actually being established. And I think again, it's about trust. People trust each other, and we wanted to create something new that everybody can be a part of and to influence. And I think we are very happy to bring on board this, which I think are most experienced people in the industry in the same company. And we are continuing to growing. We are expecting to grow the double this year of employees and triple versus next year. So
Yeah.
it looks very good, and yeah, let's see how it works.
Yeah, and when we look at the business model, is it a kind of as a service model, or is it a transactional model? Are you buying and selling the printed circuit boards with the compliance? How does that work?
Yeah, it's actually more or less as a service, because we want to be, as I say, we are trying to be the as tiny little gap between the manufacturer and the customer as we are allowed to be. So that's the main focus, and transparency means that we want to be as transparent with the customers as we are with the suppliers. I think by giving more trust in that supply chain again, will end up with a much better service for the customer.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah.
focus.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense when I look at it. If you can provide that visibility, transparency, openness, and you can do that in a manner that is as frictionless as possible. Nobody wants to add additional steps and additional processes, but they want that data. And if that data can be available, it can actually make the process more frictionless rather than adding issues to it. That's really important. Lots of dynamics going on in the supply chain at the moment, but the EMS industry is kind of one of the focuses as we look at the US, particularly with the CHIPS Act. They've got legislation and tariffs and stuff around printed circuit boards to try and bring the industry back. There's some intention to do something somewhat similar in the higher cost areas of Europe. Do you see that as viable, or do you see it as being very challenging, switching a tide that's been flowing in one direction for so many decades?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's going to be a real challenge, but I think it's not about the industry. It's about the governments needs to take control back to both the US, but also into Europe. Because if they want to build up the industry again, there's a lot of investments that needs to happen. We get, of course, a lot of requests from customers or clients who wants to look at bringing PCB manufacturing back to Europe, which is a good thing. But again, it's about the capacity in Europe at the moment. We are no longer built for mass volume in Europe anymore. So I think that's going to take many years to come back to what they would like, but I still think it's viable, and I hope by the modern technology we have now, especially for the EMS companies, very good companies in Europe, I think that they will be quite competitive compared to other regions.
Yeah, I think that digital transformation, the kind of adaptable automation we're seeing, the use of AI, reduction on dependency on direct labor makes Western Europe and the USA more promising. I think it's interesting that the printed circuit board industry was probably the first industry to go east, and the EMS industry followed it, and less stayed behind. So I think there are some interesting challenges there, but there's definitely a desire on the part of governments to do that. And I think this whole idea of friend shoring or ally shoring needs some serious thought, and consumers have to think about what they value most, whether they value their very cheap product or whether they value where and how that product's made. So I think interesting times ahead on that.
Yeah, I think we see that actually among also consumers, that they care more about where things are manufactured. They care about, are we following rules? Are the employee being paid correctly? Have they been taken care of? I think that's so again, it's about transparency. So if we can show with transparency how things are made and why, then people will probably also accept a little bit higher cost to manufacture.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when we look at millennial consumers, they are much more socially conscious, and that's without doubt a good thing. And I think that does drive a requirement for ESG compliance. And if we can make that more transparent and more visible, and that can actually find its way all the way to the consumer in terms of data, I think that's very attractive. Exciting times for you in 2023. Your startup. Have you set yourself some key performance indicators, some goals for the coming 12 months?
Yeah, actually, we had actually, but the welcome from the market was actually extraordinary. Much more positive than expected. So we actually had like internal view of going break even after 3 years. But this year, I think will be way head start of that. So it looks very good. We have already signed a lot of contracts with major actors, so it looks promising. I think that we are we are still in the first week of the launch, so I'll be a little bit careful about
making predictions. Yeah,
yes,
that would be bold, wouldn't it?
But again, I think it's about we have been approached by both clients, of course, but also good partners that want to work with us, and not only for manufacturing, but also all the things like logistics and
of course, which is
throughout the supply chain to be competitive in the market. So I think that we will probably make a better report after the first half year about how we will perform, but it looks very good.
Yeah, and the company is VC funded, private equity, or investment?
Yes, it's actually it's private investors. We have 3 major investors. They are all Norwegian, coming from outside industry. It's from real estate, it's from finance, and it's from actually recycling of materials. So very strong, well-known investors in Norway, at least. But of course, So we are very, very proud. They believe in our selling point, and I think they are in for long term. They are focusing on the same thing in their products or in their industry, which are ESG and compliance. I think that's also their main focus. They are in for long term. So, and they have given us good space to grow in the first years to come. So looks promising.
Well, I think that's a great foundation. I think you're in a great place, because I think 2 of the biggest trends we're expecting in 2023 are supply chain shifts and an increasing focus on ESG and compliance. So they're things that definitely mean you're playing a hand with the right cards in at the moment. So exciting times ahead. I look forward to hearing more about how you're going as we go through the year, and as we bump into each other at trade shows, or maybe talk again on this podcast. But in the meantime, thanks so much for introducing the business to us. I will add the URL for the company website in, so people can find their way to you. I'd suggest they also reach out to you on LinkedIn, and then we'll talk again next time. But Vidar, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us.